This is Simon Maclean and Talking Walking Football. Welcome to the show. And this week we've got again experimental show. We're beaming in a guest from overseas, and that guest is Mark Coleman. How are you, Mark?
Good evening, Simon. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Really enjoyed the previous episodes in the last few weeks. Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Good. Thanks for coming on, Mark. Do you want to tell the listeners here at Sunny G, they've probably guessed from your accent that you're not from Govan here in Glasgow. Do you want to give us a wee bit of your background, Mark, where you're from and where you are now?
I can do a mean Scottish accent, Simon, but I'm not going to now, so we'll leave it there. No, I'm from London, as you probably guessed. I was born in Kensington, West London, 1965, and spent most of my life in that area. So yeah, that's basically the background.
And where are you now, Mark?
So I'm in Malaga now. So I was a floor layer, Simon. I was on the old Margaret Thatcher YTS scheme in the 80s and was a floor layer. And I had a really good boss who kept me on and assisted me, promoted me and trained me up. And that's what I've been doing all my life. But unfortunately, you don't get a lot of old floor layers. Once you get to about 50, your back, your hips and your knees are going. And so, I came to a bit of a crossroads really, and I thought, what am I going to do now? Myself and Charlotte, my partner, we decided to come over here, sunny at Kleins, in 2017. And this is where I've been since then.
Fantastic. And is that genuine about the floor layer and the sunny climes, or is it a lot of people from Scotland and England, and of course the West End of London even, escaped to your neck of the woods? And I've got a serious interest in them, myself and my colleagues. I don't know if you know this, but we've got a podcast called Crime Time Inc. And on there we talk about fugitives, maybe like yourself. You're under caution here always. It goes without saying that you're not obliged to say anything. Is floor layer a euphemism for something?
You'd be surprised to know I'll just no comment through the most of this. But
well, you've been well trained. So, Mark, obviously talking walking football, it's how you and I came across each other. We've got a mutual friend that's over there just now that does all the editing and producing for us. So what about walking football then, Mark? What's the scene? What is the scene in Malaga? And I know that Chris, our mutual friend, is involved in that scene because he spends his time between both cities. What's the scene in Malaga and how did you get involved?
It's a very healthy scene. It's a big scene and it's a growing scene and it's in tune with the sport in general across the world. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's getting through sponsorship and through local papers who give us a half a page every week, help promote the game. And it's something that I can't take any credit for whatsoever because I came here in 2018 and it had already started previously about 2015. So 3 years previously, they'd formed a league at 50s and 60s. So there's already something growing here when I came and I've just participated in that. And it was very much a grassroots social scene as it is everywhere. And it's grown from that. And now I find myself at I don't want to say elite end, but we're at a sort of an international representative end of it. I am anyway involved in that. But this whole thing is underpinned by people who introduced this to the Costa del Sol and the Costa Blanca all those years ago. And without that, then we haven't got an international scene. So it's huge, it's growing, and it can only get bigger.
Mark, I'll come back to all of that in a wee minute because we've got a lot of ground to cover here. Did you play walking football before you went to Spain to live?
No, I'd never heard of it before. Never heard of it, never participated in it. And so, no, it was all brand new.
And had you played football? Are you in the over 50s or the over 60s now? Just to give us a clue about.
I'm just hanging in at the over 50s, Simon. Right. I'm just hanging in.
We get the idea. So you're lying about your age. That's okay, because I can see you, remember. Our listeners can't.
Yeah.
So when you went over there, had you stopped playing football altogether now? You were in your mid-50s. Had you stopped playing football?
No, what happened was I had through being a floor layer for all my life, and I played semi-pro football. So the combination of the two is not a good one for joints. And I needed quite a big back operation in about 2016. But previous to that, I'd played 11-a-side vets football to about 48, 49, and then I had a load of problems. And then it got to the point where I couldn't even get out of the bath one day. But yeah, that's the background in that. And then when I came here, I'd had the surgery, and then I found this walking football, which gives us, as you know, a new lease of life. It was fantastic.
So without walking football, you wouldn't be playing football now like the rest of us.
No
You'd be
chance.
exactly
No
the same.
chance. No.
Okay, so you went over there to live. Has the climate helped with the joints? It's a question for me, really, because I often think that when I'm on holiday, I get some relief that my joints are a bit better.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's a very good friend of mine. It's a real sad story, and he's not from far away from you. He's from Paisley, a big Celtic fan. One of my best mates, he's got rheumatoid arthritis, and it's a real problem for him. It's a real game changer. And when he comes over here, it's not just because he gets to see his old friend and have a good time, but the weather certainly helps him and gives him a positive outlook and has a positive mental and physical boost on what he's doing here.
Yeah. We're going to have a wee bit of music here, Mark, and I've not asked you about any music, but I'm going to play something that reminds me of you, because you sound to me like this guy that you'd like to be a Scotsman. Every time I mention a place or a person, you seem to know them, and you've got a story about Paisley, about Scotland, about Celtic, about Rangers. You seem to be one of these kind of Rod Stewart guys that wishes he was a Scotsman, but he's lumbered with being from London. Although I think Rod's dad was Scottish. I think he was born through in Leith or somewhere about there.
Funny you should say that, Simon. I've just bought tickets to see him play in La Coruña in the northwest of Spain, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
fantastic. Yeah. You like him. You've got that in common, that you'd rather be Scottish. Here's some music from Rod anyway. Good choice, Mark. That was nice from Rod Stewart. You're going to see him in November up in Spain. That'll be good. I've seen him a few times back in '74 in Glasgow when Scotland, the same night that Scotland qualified for the World Cup, we beat Czechoslovakia, I think 2-1 at Hampden. And I was at what was then the Apollo watching Rod Stewart. So brilliant.
Do you know what? I was a massive fan of Scotland in the World Cups there, because obviously England had a terrible time in the 70s. And my first World Cup I remembered was 1978. And all those players, of course, were household names in what was the Old English First Division, particularly the Liverpool players. And I met Graham Souness years later. One of the senior players in that squad had persuaded the manager not to play Graham Souness because he was thought as a little bit of an accident waiting to happen, was possibly going to get sent off and get him down to 10 men. And it's all in his book. And I met him years later at the airport and spoke to him about that. Yeah, that was interesting meeting him and talking about that particular chapter in the book. But as a team, they were just fantastic players. I was always rooting for him, 78 and 82, and there he scoring the goal against Brazil. Yeah, and they're looking like they're on the way back now. And my team's Brentford, and I hope that our left back, he can get back into the team because he's injured at the moment. But when you qualify for the European Championship, I think you had Hickey on one side and the old Arsenal lad on the other side, and you were playing with width, and with quality, and you beat Spain. Yeah, it's a shame he's been injured for so long, but he's a real talent, the kid.
Mark, you said that you played semi-pro. Can you tell us a wee bit about your semi-pro career, who you played for?
Yeah, we was playing. I was at Hampton and Richmond, who are now like level 5 in the pyramid, or sorry, level 6. They're a national south team, but at that stage they were much lower than that, 2 or 3 levels below that, and then on to what you'd call junior football in Scotland. So it'd be something similar to Drumchapel and to Pollock and that sort of team. It's 5 or 6 levels down.
These names are tripping off your tongue. For a West End Londoner, that's great. That lives in Malaga. Have you been doing a bit of research? Because I've been doing my research. On this show, I leave no stone unturned. And you mentioned David Neary there, his toe poke against Brazil, that only served to upset them, actually, and get them angry. But I'm told that you're not adverse to the old toe poke in the Malaga team. Is that correct?
I don't know where you get that information from. There's obviously, there's someone rogue in the camp.
We have tentacles everywhere. Actually,
I'm sure. No, by the way, that Neary, I think you'll find was the outside of his right foot. I think he's not been given the credit he deserves for that.
Why all this interest in Scotland, Mark? Seriously, have you got family up here, connections up here, a woman?
No, what it is. No, I was very privileged to play and manage the Civil Service Football Club first team, who were a massive team. They're one of the founding members of the Football League in 1863. And we take all our players from all over the country. They come from university, they come to London to work, and then they find the club, and then they join the club, play for the club. And I've met a lot of good friends of mine from Scotland that played the civil service. So one of them is a massive Drum Chapel fan. He was a Rangers fan, but he's like a lot of us. He got a little bit disillusioned with level football, wanted to support grassroots. He goes home and away with Drum Chapel. Knows Pollock very well. My mate, like I mentioned maybe earlier on, I'm not sure if that got edited already. On that first section is from Paisley and a big Celtic fan. I get a lot of stories from them, and when I go up there, I go and look up. We meet up and we talk about old times. So yeah, I've got a lot of connections. All good football people. All good football people.
Yeah. You must let me know the next time you're up this way and I'll check those warrants out for you. Mark, last week I had a guest on from Barrow-in-Furness, and I couldn't believe that you came on with a story about Barrow because you knew that area. Now, that really is the back of beyond, or Cumbria. You don't pass by Barrow-in-Furness. Do you know what I mean? What was the connection there?
My mum's family, they're from Ulverston, which is the next town down from Barrow. And so we went there as kids. We used to go over there, Easter holidays, summer holidays. And of course, it was the right trek then. She was a single parent. My parents were divorced. And it was like a 6-hour trip up to Preston. And then you were on the chugger, the local chugger, up to Ulverston, up to Barrow. But my uncle was a big Barrow, he was a season ticket holder. And of course, all these clubs fell on hard times over the years. And they had a big sort of promotion. They was trying to get money together and had the buckets around the ground, people throwing money in and that. And he used to be able to sponsor a brick. And so my uncle's name is on a brick in the main stand. And you paid like £5 or something to put your name on a brick. And and all my cousins and all my family from that side are all Barrow fans. So I'm absolutely delighted they're back in the Football League. I'm really happy.
So it was just a pure coincidence that Andy last week mentioned Barrow as I was chatting to you about doing this with us this week.
It was, but I was hanging on to his every word. Every time he mentioned Barrow and the Hulk and the submarine factory and all the rest of it, I'm just I know all the areas. I know like the back of that. So I went my first school. I was born in London, but we went back up to that area just for 1 year. It didn't quite work out, so we went back to London again. But my first school was in Grange over Sands in the Lake District. So it's an area that's close to my heart, really.
And very much in the news today, Lake Windermere, about sewage getting dumped in Lake Windermere. What a beautiful part of the world as well, isn't it?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
This is something that's going up to a government level and what have you, and it's a big social media. And I follow it and I put it all over my socials now because it's something, again, it's a real sort of cause that I'm banging the drum for and supporting.
Okay. Going to get a wee bit of music now, part 2 of that Rod Stewart song, because I was really enjoying it.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And when we come back, we'll get a wee chat specifically about walking football in Malaga and what's going on. And you said there's a league, so we'll get a chat about all the teams that you've got there, because I know this is very vibrant, and we'll get a wee chat about that. But let's have a wee listen to Georgie first and foremost. That was brilliant. I think it's the first time we've played the same artist twice on the one show, but it was worth it to hear a bit of vintage Rod Stewart, and I know you'll enjoy him live. I saw a tribute act to him 2 or 3 weeks ago, Mark, and it was really good.
Oh, yeah.
They were called Some Guys Have All the Luck, but the guy,
fantastic.
He didn't try to imitate him. He just was like Rod. He was a Londoner like you, and he was just and it wasn't too serious, but the music was brilliant, fantastic.
A lot of these lads are session musicians, Simon, and it's a fantastic scene, that whole tribute thing. And we used to go to a pub in Fulham called the Half Moon, and it's a lot of the pubs in London, probably like Glasgow as well. A lot of music pubs, they've all fallen by the wayside, and they've been turned into flats and this, that, and the other. And the scene isn't quite as big as it used to be, but the ones that are out there, they're well worth supporting. And £10 or £12 a ticket, I think it's a great night out.
I don't know about if you get home much, Mark, or what's happening in London, or for that matter in the Costa del Sol. But I was out at the weekend. It was the anniversary of my daughter's passing, and we were down in Campbelltown at the weekend, down in Argyll. And what I've noticed everywhere and I was down in Sunderland last week, the pubs are dying a death. Public houses are really struggling just now. Some of them are closing at 9 o'clock at night because there's no customers.
Same in London. In London, Simon. That's what I've been hearing. And then when I don't go back that often now, because unfortunately my mum died a couple of years ago. Cancer affects us all, doesn't it, in every family? So I don't have a lot to go back for now. But when I do go back, I notice like A, the prices, and B, like you say, the early shutdowns, all the pubs are half empty.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame. It's a real sad situation.
Yeah, because it was the breeding ground for so many bands. That was the breeding ground for live music. For music, most bands cut their teeth in live music in these pubs and clubs about the cities, and they're shutting down left, right, and centre. Anyway,
here's a story for you. I know you don't want to go off tangent too much, but so I'm from West London. I was born in Kensington, but I grew up in Richmond, and Richmond used to have the Crawdaddy Club and the Bull and Bush, and they were two pubs there that were basically attributed to the rise of the Rolling Stones and the Who. So the Who and the Rolling Stones both played in those pubs. So I grew up in an area where there's a massive history of live music and pubs, and two bands who went on to conquer the world, if you like.
Yeah.
And that heritage, if you like, and that sort of bow to of years gone by and music is still there. So it's still like almost like a pilgrimage for people that know their stuff and to visit these
Yeah.
places. Yeah, no, it's a big history.
Tell us about Malaga then, living there, walking football. I take it there's a few teams. You mentioned a league, so I take it there's
Yeah.
quite a lot of walking football going on. You've got the climate for it. Have you got the facilities for it in Malaga?
Yeah, we've got both. We're very lucky. We've got a Costa del Sol League, which I think they rebranded to the Andalusian Football League, and I think there's 8 teams at over 50 and 8 at over 60. You've also got a thriving and a developing, expanding ladies' games. You've got
Great.
Benalmádena, and you've also got teams now coming from Seville regularly to play in friendlies and stuff. It started to just spreading out like a spider's web, even inland, even somewhere like, a one-horse town in an hour inland from Malaga. There's a team called Molinar, whose mayor is so supportive of it. He gives all the facilities for free for the walking football. He puts on a coach for their away games. It's just massive. All the town halls are getting behind it. And what's really changed that is that there's much more Spanish players now and Spanish clubs involved. And so now it's starting to really take off. So it's exciting. Facilities, again, we've got great 4G facilities. You don't lose any game time or training time to bad weather. We've got it all, really. We're really lucky.
And was that started by expats over there? Did we take the game over to Spain?
Yeah, it's parallel, Simon, to the football back in the early 1900s, the pioneers of that time. So you've got clubs, haven't you, in Spain and in Italy that have got strips with colours of the people that went and basically introduced the game to those areas, whether it be, Newcastle fan at Juventus or a Sunderland fan at Athletic Bilbao, whatever. So yeah, it's exactly the same thing happened. And it's taken about 4 or 5 years for the Spanish to get involved in it, but it was purely expat when myself and Chris, I think, Chris Burt, who's doing the technical side for this show, he'll probably agree with me. It was purely expat and the odd Dutchman and the odd German, but now it's a real cross section.
Okay. And is it true that a team from Scotland went over to Malaga last year and took away all the trophies, Mark? Is that right?
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, no, a very progressive and competitive Pollock United came in and walked away with all the silverware. However, 9 months later, they didn't, up at a tournament in Rojales where Malaga, we restored parity and they were reduced to second place and the runners up berth. So we're going to meet again in 2 weeks' time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Is there ever going to be a visit from the Malaga team over here? That beggars that question, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't see why not. We should do that. Hopefully it will do. We've been over, most of the Malaga side have represented Team Spain at last year's World Nations at St George's Park. So they've had a flavour of what it's like to play in the UK. But yeah, no, why not? We'll probably have to be when's your 2 month window of weather opportunity? July,
2 months,
July and August.
2 months.
Yeah,
if
that. Yeah.
2 minutes this year, Mark. I need to warn you though, and you appreciate this because you've known a few Scotsmen obviously over your time. When Scotsmen leave Scotland, in fact, when Glaswegians leave Glasgow, they're on holiday. It doesn't matter if they're only going shopping or whatever. They're on holiday, and a certain mentality kicks in. And when we arrived in Malaga on that Jet2 flight, the flight itself had been mayhem because we were on holiday. Absolutely. And the sound of tins opening on the way over would deafen you. Good fun. It was all good fun. And we all had a great fun with all the other passengers, etc. But by the time we came to play the next day, there was quite a few sore heads about, I can assure you. And we're not used to the warm weather either. And we still come away with the trophy and celebrated that night like only Scottish people can celebrate a victory like that. And then we won the other trophy the next day in the final against Argentina. I don't know if you remember it.
No, I didn't. I wasn't part of that. I didn't realise I went home with my tail between my legs. I didn't realise you took both the trophies, but you've obviously teed this up for yourself, haven't you?
What I'm thinking is when you guys come over here, it's a different ballgame playing away from home, I can assure you.
Well, if you like, we could do the old away goals double rule. We could do home and away, and we'll see how we get on aggregate.
And the final part of that is that we'll have our own referees like you did in Malaga.
Oh, okay. Okay. On that note, we've just trained a load up for the Walking Football World Nations next year,
Okay.
and the WFA have been very kind to put them all through their accreditation. So we had a tournament last week in memory of Larry Lloyd, who's my first manager here. The great Larry Lloyd, two double European Cup winner and
Yeah.
two League Cups, UEFA Cup, etc. We had a tournament down here. The referees in that tournament were taking part in their accreditation to be qualified to do international matches.
Okay.
It's not just growing on the pitch, it's growing off the pitch as well with referees and coaching and everything.
Mark, tell us a wee bit about that, because I work along with a volunteer with Walking Football Scotland, who are our governing body as far as walking football is concerned, and they're affiliated to the Scottish Football Association, which makes us official. We're part of parallel football. You used that word earlier on. Tell us a bit about that relationship you have. Is there a Spanish FA? Is that who you've got the relationship with?
No, what happened was the reason that we're called Team Spain, and we're called that because we don't want to. We want to make it fairly obvious that we have no affiliation with the FA of Spain. They don't recognise walking football, unfortunately. So
Okay.
all our support comes from local town halls. However, there's been a recent, they call it, or a recent
UEFA,
publication
yeah.
by UEFA, who have now told their member FAs, including Spain, that they need to encourage and endorse walking football and increase the participation of football, and particularly walking football, in a certain age group. So they can't ignore this for much longer because it's gathering pace anyway in terms of participation with people that are doing it off their own back. So we don't know what the future holds. We've sent various letters to the RFEF to ask them for their support or ask them to acknowledge what we're doing. Not asking for funding, just asking them to recognise what the benefits of walking football in the community and social situations. They haven't done that. So the next port of call for us will probably be La Liga. So a similar situation to the FA in England. We got the FA in the Premier League. And maybe La Liga will look at it differently and give us some support and help promote the game throughout the country. So, yeah, to answer your question, no, we're not affiliated to them. They don't appear to be interested at the moment, but they're going to have to change that tune or change that outlook.
Can I ask you then, what I do with Walking Football Scotland is help with the referees. I'm the liaison with the referees to make sure the referees getting paid right, that we're part of the Referees Association, which is part of the SFA. So we only use authorised badged referees who are trained and have passed the course with the SFA. And then they go on a course to become walking football referees. Because as you and I know, the rules, there's so many more rules, and the ethos of the game is entirely different. It's about safety, really. So
Absolutely.
How do you get your referees then? Do they come from within walking football, or do you use proper Spanish FA referees as well?
No, it's a mixed bag. So all the referees are expat. They either refereed back in the UK, and then they've gone through the transformation of the walking football course. They don't jump from one to the other without the training. We've got trainers, referees down here, and now we've got obviously the WFA involved, which are trying to take them on to another level. There are no Spanish referees here; they're all expatriate referees, and there's a few former players, which is good to see. And I'll be honest with you, what I always found is, whether it was back home in what you call junior football or grassroots or even walking football, the best referees for me are the lads that played the game and are good communicators. So the communication is key, but the secondary thing is they've played the game.
Yes.
And because they played the game, they see it differently and they just seem to be in tune with what's going on. That's the situation down here at the moment.
One of the things about competing abroad or internationals when they come, because it's a when, not an if, is the rules, Mark. What are your rules over there? We talk about walking football as if it's one thing, but there's so many different interpretations of that all over the globe, actually. What rules do you guys play to? Have you got any?
It's like the Wild West, Simon. It's an unregulated sport, but it's not unregulated in a bad way. I see the clamour for the UEFA getting involved. There's a lot of posing and posturing and jostling to get at the top table to shape the game that we love. But for me, whether it's 5-a-side, 6-a-side, 7-a-side, whether it's 3-touch or unlimited touches, essentially it's non-contact. It's under head height. And the most important thing is it's got to be regulated. It's got to be at a walking pace. Now, when we went to the World Nations 2 years ago, we realised what we play is actually a hybrid of jogging and walking, because we weren't allowed to do anything that we normally do. And it's not because we're looking to gain an unfair advantage or to cheat. It's just what we're used to down here. I think wherever you play the game, there's a different pace of the game is played. And I think that's the key. And if anyone, I know there's a few individuals at the moment that are out there trying to develop a system whereby someone running is notified to the referee by some sort of gadget of some sort. If someone can actually break into that market and get something that we all agree works, then that will be the game changer. I'm not a believer that, I don't care what the size of the game is, whether it's, like I say, 5, 6s or 7s. That's not important. Personally, I'm a fan of 7-a-side. I like 3 touches. It's quite fast moving, not fast paced, but fast moving the ball. And I think 7-a-side is more inclusive. There's a guy in Silvio, a good friend of mine in Barcelona. They play 9-a-side, mixed sex, mixed age, and he says that works for them. So whatever gets people on the pitch, whatever they enjoy, I think is let them get on with it.
Yeah.
However, just to finish the answer to the question, where we come unstuck or where we're handicapped, if you like, is at the top. And when we are playing the international matches, when we are playing in international tournaments, because what we play down here, what our bread and butter is, we find it very difficult to adjust to unlimited touches and to 6-a-side. And it takes a while to get used to it. And so for us, that's a disadvantage, but it is what it is.
And there is a self-defeating part of it there, Mark, that people started playing walking football, maybe coming back from injury or had missed the game for 20 years, 30 years, maybe losing weight, whatever the reason, or just the social side. But they came back to try and get fitter. And then when they get fitter, they become a problem for us. I don't know if this rings a bell with you, but I often say to guests on here that our biggest problem when we introduce people to walking football is getting them to take it seriously, because they say, walking, I'm too young for that, I'm too fit for that. And then once we get them to try it, within 10 minutes, our biggest problem is trying to stop them taking it so seriously.
Yeah. That competitive element's still there. Is that beast inside you? We play for different reasons. Like you say, I played at a decent level of football. The lads all played at Team Spain International. Select team all played at a decent level. It's what gets their endorphins going. It's what drives them. And then there's other people who want to play for the social side of it and the social benefits of it. And it's a game for all. And everyone, whatever brings you to the pitch, and hopefully you get out of it what you want, and that's great. But you're right. And when we have like our kids come over and stay with us, we got people who come to stay in the summer, and they join in our sessions sometimes. And we might play a load of old boys. We might play them. They're in their 20s, whatever. We'll pass them off the pitch.
Yeah.
Because once they can't use their strength and speed, they're a bit of a loss what to do, and we always beat them. So this is the great leveler. This is why you could probably play like mixed age groups. It's something that transcends generations.
Yes.
And from a coaching point of view, I was at academy at Queen's Park Rangers at Wimbledon. I was a professional scout and a coach and what have you. I think that walking football in a coaching perspective works really well with a very young age group, because rather than they're trying to master skills at a pace they can't master, if you breaking it down to walking pace, then I think you would bring the technical ability of the very young players on before you have to then go into it at a certain pace. I think it's a great starting point.
I can't agree with you more about starting young, because I was trying to coach the over 70s a couple of weeks ago, and honest to God, it was like herding cats, trying to get them to do a simple drill with a couple of cones laid down, Mark. Mark, we're going to have a wee bit of music here, and when we come back, I want to talk to you about that, and specifically a new friend of mine, Dr. Didi Mahmood, who I know you're aware of. And
she's a whirlwind.
And she's leading off the Walking Football for Health organization, and that brings in family football, which I think is fascinating. Here's some music, and then we'll chat again, Mark. That was specially picked for you, Mark, by our producer, Chris Butt. So there you are. That hopefully made you feel at home there in the Costa del Sol.
I'd love to see him down at Legends on the karaoke.
Hey, we don't talk about these things on here. Mark, we mentioned Dr. Didi there, Walking Football for Health. I'm actually going on holiday in January, February to Australia, and we're popping into Singapore for a few days.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to get to meet her and learn all about. Do you know anything about Walking Football for Health? Have you got a handle on it?
Yeah, I know a fair bit. Didi's on a couple of managers groups that we're on, so I'm very aware of her work, and she's very good on social media, and and promoting everything she's doing. And I think she's doing a great job. That aspect of it, that side of it, is really important. We've got a cardiologist that I'm going to meet in Barcelona when I go up there next, and he's really interested in helping us with some data and putting that out on our website and what have you. And a good friend of ours, mine and Chris's, um, he had a triple bypass not so long ago. He's fitted with a pacemaker, and walking football has been like an absolute godsend to him. He's lost a load of weight. He feels healthy in himself. He lives for the game. And it's 2-3 years ago, he was literally at death's door. And it's widely regarded that the walking football, from cardiologist's point of view, is the best sport to play post-operation, because it doesn't take you into the red zone. It takes you just before the red zone, but you can play for 40 minutes, an hour. It doesn't put you in any danger at all, or put your heart under any unnecessary stress, but it promotes health and recovery. So what Dee Dee's doing is really important. There's another side to it that we shouldn't ignore.
And she's involving families. It's like you spoke about there. It's not over 50, over 60, over 70. No. It's the whole family getting involved and playing at a level that everyone can enjoy. I think it's really... See, the thing you mentioned about the coaching there with youngsters, maybe 3 or 4 times over the last few years, we've ended up at exhibitions, for want of a better word, where we're showing off walking football. And sometimes we end up... I remember we did one at Alex Ferguson's old club at Harmony Row, and there was a girls' team training there, and they were very interested to get involved in walking football. But we're talking teenagers, 20-year-olds, something like that, and they joined in, and they were actually walking. They took it literally, the walking football part.
Yeah.
And they had the skills because they're footballers and they were really good. And you could see the difference. And yet you got old guys of 60 and 70 that won't walk. They still want to run.
They still want to run. They still want to run. Yeah. I think wherever you, depending on where you are in the world, I've spoken to a couple of people that are trying to promote walking football in Malaysia, in Thailand and whatever. And they're just their outlook, and they're very fair. They don't want to just gain an unfair advantage by running. And they take it, just like you say, very literally. And so it's a very slow paced, very precise, methodical game over there. And that's just their part of their character, if you like. So when we're going to play a tournament in December, so it'll be interesting to see what they're like. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. And what Dee Dee's doing is fantastic, because, like I say, it transcends different age groups, and it's a game for the whole family. But you could literally play grandfather, father, son, daughter, and I wouldn't put it past them to have a competition in the future where you literally have a family tournament. And they're all playing for the same team.
And the thing we haven't mentioned, Mark, which is maybe remiss of me, what we find in Scotland, we're talking about the football here, the coaching, the game itself, the competitive side, internationals, families getting involved. What we haven't spoke about is the mental health benefits for people who are maybe secluded or living alone or in a strange city or strange town. I'm going to Australia, and I'm probably going to be visiting half a dozen walking football establishments. And I'll be welcomed with open arms, because we've all got that in common.
There's a good friend of mine. He's part of the Canadian setup, and he's got a real affinity to Spain, and he loves coming to Spain. He's learning Spanish, and he likes to go to different areas of Spain. And what he does before he comes over here is he taps into the local walking football team, and he sets up a training session. So wherever he goes in Spain, he joins the local group and gets involved in the training. And everywhere he goes, they just love him, and they love the fact that he's found them, and they welcome him, like you say, with open arms. So it's a real social, inclusive.
Yeah.
It's a big family, really. It's like a big movement, if you like. It's almost an international movement now. It's not just a sport. So yeah, it's great.
And it seems that, I think the way this grew, not here on Sunny G, but Chris and I do a YouTube channel called Talking Walking Football with Simon Maclean. And it was born of COVID, because we were all a bit isolated at that time. But what we found
earlier.
Yeah, what we found was that every guest that we spoke to, ordinary guys that were coming along that we knew little about beforehand, they've all got a story. They've all got a tale to tell, different occupations, ill health, losing partners, life generally, Mark, going on round about them. And we all bring that to the table, and it's a great forum for everybody to chat about these things openly.
I mean, do you know the other benefit is that it's just on the back of that? The benefit is you're now getting groups of people coming together in the morning, in a weekday morning, because they're retired from work, or they're on their own, like you say. And this is now part of an inclusive group, a social group, the mental health, the physical health, the well-being. People take an interest in them. They take an interest in their background, their stories, particularly if you're over here, because you can be quite isolated over. If you come here over as a couple and you lose your wife or you lose your husband, it can be very isolating, and maybe for whatever reason you can't go back home. But walking football, male and female, opens it up. And also from a facility point of view, it must be the same in Scotland. It's certainly the same over here. All these facilities are ram jam between 5 or 4 o'clock up to 11 o'clock every Saturday, Sunday, but they're absolutely empty from midweek until 5 o'clock. But now they're not, because you've got these walking footballers that have turned up. They're taking over these parks and using the facilities. So now we're getting great use of the facilities as well. So it's a win for everybody.
Yep. Mark, tell us a wee bit about this world organisation. Spain have got the licence. You've got the licence to hold a tournament next year. Is that right?
We have, yeah. We played at the FIWFA World Nations in St George's Park. Then Paul Carr, who's the CEO and founder, he said, look, this is going to go out to tender. We want this to go around the world eventually. And this is the first time it goes out to tender. So I think us and a couple of other nations were in for it. Luckily, the application was deemed as strong enough for them to accept it. And now it's literally taken over my life, Simon. It's now got a year's work before this starts in the last third week in October 2025 in Torrevieja Sports City. And the beauty of it is they're delighted for us to host it there. The sports minister and the tourism minister are just cock a hoop that we've picked their very state-of-the-art facility at a time where all the tourists have gone home. So they can't do enough for us. So the help we've had and the reception to our requests at the facility and in the town in general, the hoteliers, the coach companies, has been absolutely fantastic. They're just falling over backwards to help us. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're not hitting brick walls. We're just finding people that just want to help us. So it's going to be great.
You need a referee at all?
We do. We need lots of. We've got 110 applications from 40 nations across 6 age groups.
Wow.
So we need a lot of referees, Simon.
Tell me about the age groups then.
So you've got last year at St George's Park, all they had was for ladies. They had exhibition games for ladies. It was primarily a men's over 50s, over 60s tournament with just demonstration games from ladies. This year, we've got men at 50, 60 and 70 age groups, women at 40, 50 and 60. We've gone from no women teams at all in St George's Park to 12 teams at every age group in the 40s, 50s and 60s. We've got 12 teams at men's 70s. It's just got absolutely crazy. It's going to be a logistical challenge that way, but we're looking forward to it.
And what you're going to be doing is competing with our Scottish Cup. We have the Scottish Cup here in one day in Glasgow, on Glasgow Green. I don't know if you know Glasgow Green.
No, I'm not familiar.
And there's over 900 people were there this year playing. Wow. 900 players.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So we've often said that it's the biggest one-day walking football event in the world. But I think you're going to be competing with us with that you're taking on.
Yeah, we're looking at upward of 1,000 players. It'll be a close run thing, but obviously we'll massage the figures to make sure we're just slightly ahead.
Of course. I'd expect nothing less, Mark.
See, I know what's going to happen, Simon. As I try to be a conduit to get Scotland involved in it and introduce yourselves to the association, and I believe Scotland are now going to be represented in certainly one or two of the age groups. So it'd be a sod's law that you knock us out in the quarterfinals or something. So that's just the way it's written, isn't it? It's in the stars already. So
yeah, we will have representation. Under what banner that'll be, I'm not sure yet. There's still talks going on about that and whatnot. But it's all that part of being part of the bigger picture and keeping it proper. It'll be fantastic anyway. What an excuse for a party.
Oh, no, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. It's going to be a festival of football.
Yeah, but it will take over your life. Mark, I can't believe how quickly things go in here. We're going to have a wee bit of music, but we're basically done here. So I need a wee word from our sponsors. Can I ask you, if Scotland win that World Cup at any age group next year, do we get to host it the year after? Because that would be something special.
Quite possibly.
Promise me you'll come back on and tell us nearer the time about your setup for the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. Thank you very much for having us on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation. Like I say, it's gotten too quick, but I'd like to come on again just to give you some updates on how it's progressing and how things are progressing worldwide and on the Costa del Sol, Costa Blanca in particular.
That's all dependent on whether you're arrested between now and then. Of course, if you're still at liberty, Mark, you're more than welcome. You're very welcome here on Sunny Cheek.
I've got a good lawyer, Simon. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
All the best, mate. Enjoy the sun.
Cheers. Thank you.